Christmas Eve, 2024. While the world slept, a machine the size of a car was falling into the sun. Not toward the sun. Not near it. Into it. It was traveling at 430,000 miles per hour, fast enough to cross the entire United States in 20 seconds. And at the moment it plunged deepest into the solar atmosphere, every signal went dead. No telemetry. No beacon. No way to know if it was still alive. The team that built it, engineers who had poured a decade of their lives into this mission, could do nothing but sit in silence and wait. Here is what makes this extraordinary. For 80 years, scientists had stared at the sun and called one of its deepest mysteries physically unsolvable. The corona, the sun's outer atmosphere, somehow burns 300 times hotter than the surface directly beneath it. That violates the most basic laws of heat we know. And nobody could explain why. On that silent Christmas Eve, a spacecraft named after a 91-year-old scientist who was once told his ideas were impossible was flying directly through that mystery. This is what it found. The fire above the fire. To understand why this mission mattered, you first need to understand something that most people get completely wrong about the sun. The sun is not dangerous because it is hot. The surface of the sun burns at around 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That is already a number so large it stops meaning anything, hotter than any volcano, any industrial furnace, any process humans have ever deliberately created. But that surface, that is not where the real danger lives. Surrounding the sun, extending millions of miles outward in every direction, is a layer called the corona. It is invisible to the naked eye. You can only see it during a total solar eclipse, when it appears as a ghostly white halo bleeding out from behind the darkened disk. It looks delicate. It looks like something that should be cooler than the surface below it. Instead, it is between 1 and 3 million degrees Fahrenheit. Read that again. 3 million degrees. That is 300 times hotter than the surface it sits above. And for more than 8 decades, this simple, maddening fact broke every model physicists had for how heat behaves. You know intuitively how heat works. Stand near a fire and walk away from it, you get cooler. Every step away from the source, the temperature drops. That is not a preference or a theory. It is one of the foundational laws of thermodynamics. The sun ignores it completely. Move away from the surface, into the corona, and the temperature does not fall. It explodes upward by a factor of 300. Physicists named this the coronal heating problem, and for generations it sat at the top of astrophysics' most embarrassing unsolved list, a mystery hiding in plain sight, 93 million miles away, burning visibly every single day. But the corona is not merely a scientific puzzle. It is the origin of something that reaches Earth. Out of this superheated plasma, a constant stream of charged particles is born. The solar wind. It flows outward in every direction at hundreds of miles per second, filling the entire solar system, and when it hits Earth's magnetic field hard enough, the consequences are not abstract. The 1989 Quebec geomagnetic storm knocked out power across the entire province for 9 hours. The 2003 Halloween storms damaged or destroyed dozens of satellites. And the 1859 Carrington event, the most powerful solar storm in recorded history, if it hit today, with our current infrastructure, some estimates suggest recovery could take years and cost more than any other natural disaster in human history. Every time a major solar storm moves toward Earth right now, we get between 15 minutes and a few hours of warning. 15 minutes. That is the gap between us and catastrophe, and it exists because we have never been close enough to the sun to see how these storms actually form. Until now. The spacecraft was named for. Before the mission itself, there is a story that tells you everything about how science actually works, and how wrong it can be before it is right. In 1958, a young astrophysicist named Eugene Parker sat down and wrote a paper. He had been studying the mathematics of plasma, the superheated, electrically charged gas that makes up the sun, and his equations kept pointing toward the same conclusion. The sun, he argued, does not just sit there radiating light and heat outward passively. It actively exhales. A constant, invisible stream of charged particles flows outward from the sun in all directions, filling the solar system continuously. He called it the solar wind. He submitted the paper to a leading physics journal. It came back rejected. The peer reviewer, a respected, senior scientist, wrote that the paper contradicted established physics. The idea of a continuous stream of solar particles was considered implausible. The consensus was that space between planets was essentially empty, static. Parker's model threatened that consensus, and the journal's instinct was to protect it. Parker appealed. The journal reconsidered only after the intervention of its editor-in-chief, a physicist named Subramanian Chandrasekhar, who read the paper himself and decided it deserved publication. Chandrasekhar would later win the Nobel Prize in Physics. He recognized something in Parker's work that the reviewers had missed. 2 years after publication, spacecraft measurements confirmed everything Parker had predicted. The solar wind existed exactly as his equations described it. What had been called a contradiction of established physics turned out to be an extension of it, one that the establishment had not been ready to see. Over the following decades, Eugene Parker became one of the most consequential figures in the history of solar science. His framework for understanding the sun and its influence on the solar system became the foundation on which nearly every subsequent mission was built. So when NASA began planning a mission that would go further than any spacecraft had ever gone, directly into the solar atmosphere, they decided to mark the occasion in a way the agency had never done before in its entire history. They named the spacecraft after a living person. Parker was 91 years old at the launch. He stood on the launch pad in Florida on a warm August morning in 2018 and watched a rocket carry his name into the sky. By all accounts, he was calm. The kind of calm that comes from having spent 60 years being certain about something before the world caught up. He passed away in 2022 at 94 years old. He did not live to see the Christmas Eve plunge. But he lived long enough to see every major early discovery from the mission, the switchbacks, the turbulent solar wind, the coronal mass ejections filmed from inside. He lived long enough to know the spacecraft bearing his name was delivering on every promise. There is a particular kind of vindication that only the very patient ever get to feel. Eugene Parker felt it completely. Building a machine that survives the impossible. Here is the engineering problem that kept physicists and aerospace designers awake for decades. How do you build a spacecraft that can function inside the atmosphere of a star? This is not a rhetorical question. It is a genuinely hard materials science problem, and for most of the 20th century the honest answer was that you probably cannot. During its closest approaches, the sun-facing surface of the Parker Solar Probe reaches temperatures of around 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. That is hotter than flowing lava. It is hot enough to melt steel, aluminum, and titanium, the three materials aerospace engineers reach for first when they need something strong. And the spacecraft is not just passing through this environment for a moment. It is flying through it, decelerating, then accelerating back out, repeatedly, over years. Meanwhile, just a few inches behind the heat shield, the scientific instruments need to operate at roughly room temperature. 85 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature of a comfortable living room. The gap between 2,500 degrees on one side and 85 degrees on the other, across a material only about 4.5 inches thick, is one of the most extreme thermal engineering challenges ever solved. The solution is elegant in the way that the best engineering always is. The heat shield, officially called the thermal protection system, is built from two panels of carbon-carbon composite sandwiching a core of carbon foam. That foam is 97% air. It sounds fragile. It is not. It is extraordinarily light, extraordinarily strong, and one of the most effective thermal insulators ever flown in space. The sun-facing side is coated with a specially formulated white paint designed to reflect the majority of incoming solar radiation rather than absorbing it. But here is the detail that surprises almost everyone when they first hear it. The corona reaches temperatures of 1 million degrees or more. The spacecraft is flying directly through it. And it survives. How? Because temperature and heat are not the same thing. Temperature measures how fast individual particles are moving. Heat measures how much energy those particles actually transfer when they collide with something. The corona is extraordinarily hot, meaning its particles move at extraordinary speeds. But it is also almost a perfect vacuum. There are so few particles per cubic centimeter that even though each one carries enormous energy, the actual quantity of energy striking the shield at any moment is manageable. The spacecraft is not swimming through a million-degree bath. It is flying through a million-degree near emptiness. And a well-designed carbon shield can handle that. There was one more problem the engineers had to solve, one almost nobody talks about. At 430,000 miles per hour, the physical forces on the spacecraft's frame are immense and constantly shifting. Rigid resistance would cause the structure to fracture. So the engineers designed the frame with flexible joints. The spacecraft was built to bend in response to those forces rather than fight them. It was designed to flex so it would not break. That principle, it turns out, kept it alive. Inside the star, what the data revealed. On the morning of December 24, 2024, the team at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory in Maryland was not celebrating anything. They were watching telemetry screens, waiting for their spacecraft to disappear. As Parker's solar probe fell toward its closest approach, 3.8 million miles from the solar surface, closer than any human-made object had ever traveled, it entered a communications blackout. The electromagnetic radiation pouring off the corona was so intense it overwhelmed any radio signal the spacecraft could transmit. The team had known this was coming. They had planned for it. They had run the simulations, checked the math, verified the heat shield design hundreds of times. None of that made the silence easier. For roughly 36 hours, a machine they had spent more than a decade building went completely dark. No data. No beacon. No confirmation it had survived. The spacecraft was flying on pre-programmed autopilot through the atmosphere of a star, incapable of receiving new commands or sending any response, while the people responsible for it sat in a room in Maryland on Christmas Eve and waited. For context, Mercury, the planet closest to the Sun, never gets within 28 million miles of the solar surface. Parker's solar probe was more than 7 times closer than that. On the evening of December 26, the signal came back. A simple beacon tone. Just a radio pulse indicating system health status. It translated to something like, "I am here. I am operational. Everything is working normally." Engineers who had spent years of their careers on this mission reportedly wept openly. When the full science data began downloading to Earth in early January 2025, what the instruments had recorded inside the corona was unlike anything scientists had seen before. The spacecraft's wide-field camera captured footage of the solar wind being born, visible streams of charged plasma pulling away from the corona, accelerating outward, organizing into the patterns that eventually reach Earth. Scientists described the experience of watching this data as something like standing at the source of a river after spending decades only ever studying it hundreds of miles downstream. Everything upstream, the turbulence, the structure, the origin, suddenly visible for the first time. The data also confirmed something that had only been predicted theoretically, that when the Sun launches a massive coronal eruption, not all of the plasma escapes into space. Some of it loops back toward the Sun, pulled by the magnetic field, altering the corona and influencing the next eruption. This feedback mechanism helps explain why some solar storms hit Earth with devastating force while others dissipate harmlessly. Parker filmed it directly, in detail no one had ever seen. And the coronal heating mystery, that 80-year-old impossibility, the preliminary data points to those magnetic switchbacks as a primary driver, transferring energy from the surface into the corona through a complex interaction of reconnection events and wave turbulence. 80 years of mystery. One spacecraft. One Christmas Eve. The answer, it turns out, was always there. We just had to be brave enough to go get it.